This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. This time I'm responding to several interrelated events. A new free trade agreement signed by 15 countries in Asia, including China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. Led by China, but including all of them committing to cutting their tariffs with one another and becoming a free trade zone. This part of the world accounts for almost a third of the world's trade and production. So we're talking a momentous event. The United States did not participate. The United States is not involved. The United States is excluded by its own choice. Closely related to that is the anguished consequence of all of this in the centrist parties of Europe. They're frightened. They're worried it out loud now that their commitment to, their investments in an alliance with the United States against the Chinese is unraveling as history proceeds. They're beginning to wonder out loud whether the United States is turning away from them too, and that their economic future lies more in working out arrangements with China than doing so with the United States. And why is all of this happening? One reason. One basic reason. Mr. Trump and the Republican Party and the response of the American capitalist class and the response of voters. Let me explain. Mr. Trump is the champion of America first, of cutting our ties with international organizations, of throwing trade wars and tariff wars up against not just the People's Republic of China, but Canada, Mexico, Europe, India, Latin America. It really doesn't matter. Economic nationalism is what was on display throughout the Trump presidency. By itself, that might have been thought of as an aberration in American politics. But it didn't happen by itself. First, and of enormous importance around the world, note was taken in foreign capitals and among foreign business executives that the American capitalist class, the CEOs of the 500 largest corporations, those people, they allowed Mr. Trump to make his experimental explorations in a turn to economic nationalism. They didn't object, or their objections were weak and intermittent. It looks to the world as though the business class in the United States was kind of interested to see whether Mr. Trump's radical alteration from a neoliberal globalizing internationalist focus to a turning inward nationalist prioritizing, whether that might be a profitable new direction for all of them. In other words, the world noticed that Mr. Trump was allowed by all of the business institutions to go in these directions, even when and if those institutions were at least publicly committed to something else. And then the rest of the world also noticed that there's a mass base for the American first turn to nationalism. Mr. Trump got millions more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016. Not a rejection of where he's going and where he wanted to go further. Now, this has enormous consequences. Anyone proposing to invest in the United States must wonder now whether that's less safe than it once was, because where might this economic nationalism go? Cutting deals with the United States of all kinds for activities here, but also for activities outside the United States, has just become more risky because of where nationalism might take any of those agreements. When the United States withdraws from the Paris Environmental Agreement, to the World Health Organization, when it targets executives of companies where the government has some dispute, you're seeing activities, actions that make every other company and corporation and country think again. That is going to cost the United States big time. And no fancy phrases from a new Biden administration changes any of that. Biden may be gone in 4 years, to be replaced by a continuation, perhaps on a much more intensified scale, of that turn to nationalism. No, the United States has now shot itself in the foot again. The decline of the United States is visible also in the wobbling that it is now doing between an economic nationalism and an economic globalism whose outcome is very unclear. Be aware that the footprint of the United States in the world economy has been declining in strictly numerical economic terms for some time. But it is now also happening on a political and cultural and ideological set of levels, which will intensify the economic. Empires in decline are always fraught with danger and excess and self-destruction. American capitalism looks to be no exception at all. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.